With over 400 celebrity interviews and tons of pop culture nerdiness, Too Opinionated is a safe haven for your inner geek. Find us at meistercon.com or on YouTube under MeisterCon Pod. And please subscribe. It would really help us out. Thanks, everybody. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Too Opinionated. So excited today. I think I've got you a really good one. I've got the founder of the Cherry Blossom Festival, National First Ladies Day, Nicholas Inman, with me. So welcome, Nicholas.
Hey, well, thank you.
You've been making some rounds. I've seen you on a few different things.
I tell you, they get desperate for news every once in a while.
Well, Nicholas, let's start this way. Tell me a little bit about your background and how you got involved in all of these different events.
Well, I always try to say I think I'm a bit of a history nerd. And so in history, I just absorb it like a sponge. And to kind of tell you how I became involved in the Cherry Blossom Festival, following high school, I spent some time in Washington, D.C. And while there, became homesick for Marshfield, Missouri, my hometown. We're kind of a Mayberry type setting, and you kind of are drawn when you've been here all of your life. So became a little bit homesick. So decided to come home. And then once I came home, I guess I was a little fickle. I missed being in Washington. So I thought, well, let's plant cherry blossom trees here, and I'll just have the two things of my most favorite places to be. And so that's kind of how it started. And once we started planting the cherry blossom trees here, of course, people really got excited about beautification, and it's been a great project for our city. We didn't really have anything in the spring. The 4th of July is our big time of the year.
Right.
We have the oldest celebration west of the Mississippi River. And so that's really when tourists and people would come home. So we needed something in the spring. So we planted 3 varieties of cherry blossom trees. So we would have a entire month of blooming. And then we thought, well, when they bloom, we need to do something. So we decided at the end of the month, we'd have a cherry blossom festival. And we didn't want to just have a standard craft show. Everybody does that.
That's right.
So you think of cherry blossoms, you think of history in our nation's capital. So we decided, hey, let's do something that focuses on the preservation of American history. And so thus was the birth of the Cherry Blossom Festival 18 years ago. Yeah. So that's kind of my background of how I got involved with.
You've been doing this for a while.
Yeah. I always say our family lives and breathes the Cherry Blossom Festival. It's the family project, and it takes a whole community. I mean, there's an army of people, from the Cherry Blossom Committee to the volunteers to all the different committees. And it's exciting to see your whole community get excited.
Well, yeah, for sure. And which is one of the great things I think about smaller communities is we love our festivals.
Yes, we do.
We love getting together and celebrating.
Yep. Yeah, there's a camaraderie of that.
Exactly.
And when you welcome people from all over the world, which we do, to the Cherry Blossom Festival, you really take pride that you get to showcase your community, and they get to meet your neighbors. And I think that draws people from larger cities back here. We only have so many hotels. So a lot of our local residents have kept VIP guests all 18 years, and they've bonded with them. And I think they come back to see their host families more than they do the Cherry Blossom because they feel like they're coming home, and small towns can offer that.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I love that you kind of transported that from DC. Did any idea when you first started that it would get this big?
No, and I'm really excited that it has. I had a really good friend who, Betty Hearns was her name, and she was former Missouri First Lady, and she'd been instrumental in her hometown of Charleston, Missouri, of starting being involved in starting the Dogwood Azalea Festival there, and had helped promote it for years. And she said to me when we started, it'll take 25 to 30 years before local people will really embrace the festival as their own tradition. And I thought, oh, no, probably not. But I think we've done really well by 18 years to experience the growth that we have. And I'm always mindful of that. But like our high school alumni association has an all-school reunion during the festival. And, there are so many things, family reunions you start to see that are being planned at Cherry Blossom times. it's kind of exciting to see everybody get.
I love it, and it's like it lasts a whole week, right?
Well, my wife always says, "Hey, this is only supposed to be 3 days. How do we explode to a whole week?" But this next Sunday, the 23rd, the Ministerial Alliance is hosting for the first time a service to kick off Cherry Blossom Week. And then we've got a square dance one night, a street dance another, and then we're knee deep into here we go. It's Cherry Blossom full throttle from there until Sunday. So it's kind of stretched out into an entire week. And, being a person who enjoys that, I love it. But there's just something for everybody that way.
Yeah, I think it's great. I think that's terrific. So how
Hope
did
you can come?
Yeah, I would love to come out there. I bring the whole thing. I'm a grandfather now.
Oh,
I bring the grandkids with.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, that would be a blast. I mean, we love our festivals here in West Virginia, so I'm sure it's just a great time.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah. So how did National First Ladies Day become involved with?
Well, when we talk about preserving our history, I've always been drawn to the work of the First Ladies. And when I say we all roll up our sleeves here and we get to work to plan the Cherry Blossom Festival, that's really what our First Ladies have done throughout history. They've rolled up their sleeves and they've got the job done to better the country. So when I had the idea of National First Ladies Day, one President's Day, I thought, why are we only celebrating the presidents? Yes, they've made great contributions to the history of the country, but so have their wives. And they've done so in an unelected, unpaid position. And we had put all these expectations upon that role of First Lady. So I thought, well, we have a reunion of presidential descendants every year during the Cherry Blossom Festival. And Marshfield is really the heart of the nation where we're located. President George H.W. Bush visited here for the 4th of July in 1991. And he coined the phrase in his speech that we were the heartbeat of the nation. And so I thought, well, we really are. We're in the center of the nation. This would be a perfect place to roll that project out, have all those administrations represented, and our service project could be the Cherry Blossom, the festival and the trees, and we could roll up our sleeves, work on those projects. And so the National Commission, when I put it together, they all agreed. They thought that was a great tie-in because the First Ladies had been synonymous with cherry blossoms. So it worked well. And I can't emphasize enough, even though it's going to happen here as the National Kickoff, we want to encourage communities all over the country to take on their own projects, whatever it might be, going in and reading, or if it's going out and working in your yards, or whatever the situation might be, that's a project that you could endorse and support and volunteer at in your community. What greater way to honor the nation's First Ladies than to follow their example?
Yeah, I love that.
So many of
you're right. Our First Ladies, a lot of them are beloved, but they're a little underappreciated because they didn't necessarily sign up to be in politics, but they definitely are in politics.
But boy, we sure like to criticize them when we think they just or go outside of the box. But they've used their platforms to endorse and support so many things, from beautification to literacy to drugs to all kinds of things that they've really taken on as service projects. And so we have a great example. And we have so many holidays, national holidays, that allow us to stay home from work and relax and do all these things. We do not have a national holiday that calls us to work, that calls us to go out and make the country a better place. And so I think it's so exciting that it's happening during this year's Cherry Blossom Festival. And it's occurring on Saturday, April the 29th at 10 o'clock in the morning in our high school. We thought that was an appropriate setting in the gymnasium. If we were going to go out and roll up our sleeves, the gym was a good place to start that. And so we're just really excited to host that here. The National Commission, our goal is to see it become a national holiday. Whether it's by executive order or
it should be
Congress, it should be. It's a day. What's a better example than to go out and work in your community? And I think we should all be behind that. And we chose the last Saturday in April because Martha Washington became First Lady on April the 30th in 1789. And so we wanted something close to that. but yet we wanted it to be a day when everybody would be home from work to be
That's
able to
right.
have an opportunity to go out and volunteer. So we thought, well, the last Saturday in April would be a standard day. And the national calendar folks who do National Cupcake Day and National Puppy Day, they've been behind it and they have endorsed it. So that was our first step. And we move forward from there and just hope that civic clubs across the country, church groups, community organizations of every shape and size, classes in school, we hope that they all get behind that and start preparing. Hey, it's First Ladies Day. This is going to be our community project. Maybe they'll choose a first lady they want to honor with their service. If it's beautification, maybe they'll say we're doing this in honor of Lady Bird Johnson, or whatever the project might be, or the first lady that they might honor. We just hope that will happen, and we really want to see a civics component to it, so that throughout the week leading up to First Ladies Day, classrooms across America will really start to study the first ladies, and maybe some of those who have made great contributions but have been unsung in the annals of history. The annals of history are often unkind to some first ladies, and they focus more on maybe some of those that we would find more popular. But there's been so many that have made great contributions that we might not even be able to name off the tip of our tongue. So I think the civics component is really important.
Yeah, I completely agree. So can you run through some of the guests that you have lined up for this day? Because it's kind of amazing when you listen to them.
Well, yes. And you mean specifically for First Ladies Day?
Yeah.
So we have Mary Eisenhower and Massee McKinley. Mary Eisenhower being Eisenhower's youngest granddaughter. Massee McKinley being the great-great-nephew of President McKinley. They serve as the co-chairpersons of the National First Ladies Day Commission, and they will be very involved in the ceremony. Of course, Grover Cleveland's grandson, George Cleveland, will be a part of it. We have President Hayes and President Coolidge's great-granddaughters, Margaret Hayes Clark and Jennifer Harville. And Jennifer serves as a member of the National First Ladies Day Commission. We have Andrew Oak, who is the First Ladies man, and he helped with the C-SPAN series on the First Ladies. So we have the commission very well represented. And then we have so many other cultural icons and history icons that visit during Cherry Blossom Weekend. I always say Cherry Blossom Weekend is you put history in a blender and it blows up for several days, because we have everything from panels of World War II veterans to those who are related to American presidents, to those from classic television, things of that nature, because culture is a big part of our history. So Jerry Mathers from Leave It to Beaver will be here for Cherry Blossom Weekend.
Jerry.
Yeah, John Provost, who of course was Timmy from Lassie, Michael Leonard, who was the mother from the Waltons, Allison Arngrim, who was Nellie Olson on Little House.
Yeah, Allison's been on our show before.
Isn't she great?
Oh, she is terrific.
She is. We are only about 40 minutes from Rocky Ridge Farm, where Laura Ingalls Wilder lived and wrote all of her Little House books. So we have a big following here for Little House.
I saw you do some things with Wilder Day.
We do, and I'm the executive director at the Wilder home, so I might be just a tad bit partial to the Wilder home. But Louis Graziano, who was the last living witness to the German surrender of World War II, will be here for Cherry Blossom Weekend. Margaret Carey, who was Disney's model for Tinkerbell. Beverly Washburn from Old Yeller. The list just goes on and on.
Because we love our classic TV stuff.
Yes, and classic movies too. Carolyn Grimes, who was Zuzu from It's a Wonderful Life. Johnny Whitaker, who was in Family Affair, but he's actually going to be here to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the filming of Tom Sawyer, which he of course starred in. So
I know you forget that he was in that one, but he was really good as Tom Sawyer.
And it was filmed here in Missouri. So that's why he's coming, to showcase that anniversary. So the First Ladies Day weekend is going to be filled with all kinds of people. And the ceremony itself will include the 135th National Guard Army Band Ensemble, brass ensemble. Massee McKinley's going to sing. Our mayor's going to have a proclamation. Nice. It's going to really be a nice ceremony, and we're excited about it.
Well, yeah, and you should be. It sounds terrific. One thing I kind of noticed with the reading through your guest list is most of them share kind of a service type of mentality. They've all given back in some way, like they've kind of taken on some of that responsibility, just being a descendant, and have used it in a positive manner. I mean, have you noticed any traits or anything that are similar among those guests?
It's interesting, especially amongst the presidential descendants, the camaraderie that they possess because of the responsibility that they feel as descendants of American presidents. And so many of them, you're correct, have taken on projects that were either started or endorsed by either their presidential relative or the first lady, and are still very hands-on, some of them in that. And during our festival, for many years, even before the festival started, we honor service. And so it's fitting that the First Lady's National Kickoff would take place here. Edwin Hubble, the namesake of the Hubble telescope, was born here. And so we have honored Edwin Hubble every year with an award called the Edwin Hubble Medal of Initiative. And we present it to Americans who have shown great initiative in their chosen field. And generally, that's through service. And some of those presidential descendants have received that award. Many national celebrities, several former presidents and first ladies have been honored with it. So it kind of all, when you look at it, the picture all comes clear of why it's happening in Marshfield. It's an appropriate weekend for it all to be rolled out.
I know. What a neat little town. I love it.
Well, hey, I'm a little partial, but I think it's the best place in the world to live.
How many visitors do you typically get for
there'll be several thousand here over the weekend. And for a town of nearly 7,000 people, to welcome that many people, it's exciting for us. It has its challenges, but to see other people get excited by, when you live somewhere and the people, you can often become so comfortable and you can take it for granted. Then when people visit here and you see it through their eyes, you start to think, hey, I'm kind of fortunate to live where I live. And you get excited about it.
Well, yeah, I think that's awesome. Have you noticed people returning year after year?
Oh, yes. And some of our guests, as I mentioned earlier, have been here all 18 years.
Wow.
When we first started the festival, there was a project in particular that I involved the presidential descendants in. And I kind of saw their role as a one-time event. And when they all got together, I mean, we had descendants of over 30 presidents here, the first Cherry Blossom Festival. And now this was before we were really into Facebook and all these kind of things, and contacting all these people across the country, and then convincing them to come to Marshfield, Missouri. By the way, take your vacation and come to Marshfield, Missouri, and you've never heard of it in your life. That's quite a selling point. And so when they arrived here, they really enjoyed being together. They'd had few opportunities to do that. And suddenly, the event that I had them participating in, I was lining them up in chronological order. And the conversation was, my grandpa hated your grandpa and my grandpa hated your uncle. And it was kind of funny to listen to those conversations. But we had a panel that year where they all were on stage. And one of them said from the stage to me, can we come back? I said, well, of course. I just never thought they would want to. And some of them have become really close friends.
Oh, that's great.
Funny story. And I always say our Cherry Blossom Festival celebrates the history that unites us and not the history that divides us. And this is a great example of this. President Clinton's cousin attends the festival every year, has since the beginning. And she's become really good friends with President Monroe's family. Now, of course, the Clintons are in Arkansas, the Monroes are in Baltimore, Maryland, but this Clinton cousin has family members in Baltimore, Maryland. So one day she calls and she's, hey, my family's needing a babysitter, and I want to reach out to the Monroe family to see if some of their girls that are that age might be interested in being a babysitter for my relatives. And I thought, isn't this a cool moment in history that the Clintons are reaching out because of Marshfield, Missouri, to find a babysitter from the Monroe family clear across the country? But that's the kind of camaraderie and friendships that they have made. And I call those healing moments of American history, when we can cross political lines and we can celebrate history and the fact that we're all Americans. And I think that's why First Ladies Day is so important is it's a bipartisan day where we celebrate all the first ladies and all their contributions. Even our bachelor president, James Buchanan, had a hostess in the White House, his niece,
Yeah.
Harriet Lane. So every administration has a significant role to be celebrated, and it's really nice to be able to do that.
Yeah, I think it's such a neat idea. And who knew that just starting a festival based around cherry blossoms could grow
Right.
into them. I mean, that's amazing.
Well, I think history is important. And my grandma has a saying that I like to remember a lot: learn from others' mistakes because you'll never live long enough to make them all yourself. and that's so true. And, I never thought as an adult I'd be quoting my grandmother or my mother all the time. But it's so true. And that's what history allows us to do, is to learn from others' mistakes. And I find history fascinating. And when you look at our country compared to other governments of the world, we're a country still in our infancy. And so we ought to be doing lots to preserve our history and to share it with other generations. And I was excited to hear you say that you're a grandpa, because that's why I think that it was important that so much of our festival take place, and so much of it's free. I mean, the dinners and things are ticketed events because they have to buy the food, but the panels and the speeches and things are free, because I think everybody should have access to their history.
Yeah.
And, if you have 12 kids or 15 grandkids or whatever, you should be able to bring them and see history makers. And
it kind of brings it to life.
It does. And hear from primary sources of history that you're going to remember the rest of your life.
Well, I love it because some of those, presidents and first ladies, it's been, decades since they were in office. And, younger people, they may not know anything about that particular time with that. But we've got, like in the case of Eisenhower, I mean, it's a granddaughter, which is it's hard to imagine that they're still doing so well, and that they're out there. I think it's so great that we can kind of connect the younger generation with our history in a way that I think would connect with it.
Well, and we're living in a time where we're seeing some of history rewritten and some of history reobserved and reanalyzed, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
And to kind of piggyback off what you were saying, you asked about the beginning years of the Cherry Blossom Festival. To go further than just my visit to Washington, I was working at Walmart in the evening at one point, and was discussing, something came up about President and Mrs. Eisenhower. And none of those who were working with me in my circle that day knew who the Eisenhowers were. And I called Mary Eisenhower after that. I'd read an article about her. She lived in Kansas City, Missouri at that time. And I called her and I said, "Hey, you don't know me, but we have a problem in our town. And you need to come and speak at our high school about your grandparents." And she said, "Okay, I'll do it." But she said, "I'm seeing that more and more." And she knew her grandparents, knew them very well.
Yeah.
And so she came to Marshfield. She spoke at our high school. And she made a little comment during her speech. She said, "If you're interested in the American presidency, you have to travel all over America to birthplaces and grave sites and libraries. And the actuality of the average American visiting all those places is just probably not going to happen.
Right.
And there needs to be a location where you go and learn about everybody." So when we started talking about these trees and we needed to do a festival, that comment from Mary stayed in my mind. And I thought, hey, this could be the place. And so Mary Jean Eisenhower is patron of our Cherry Blossom Festival. We call her the mother of the festival. Little did she know that comment was going to lead to all that it led to. But it's so fascinating to me and to those visiting here to hear her talk about Mamie Eisenhower as, my Mimi did this and my Mimi said that. And, those are true and live stories that she witnessed with her own ears and her own eyes. And I think that's fascinating. And, on the First Lady's Day Commission, James Carter serves. And James Carter is Rosalind Carter's grandson. And to still have a First Lady that's living that you still get to make memories with, and to hear him talk about that, I think is just really fascinating.
It is. Yeah, it's so interesting. And I just think I'm surprised that we don't do more things like that, where you are gathering up, living history.
Well, you're right. A couple of years ago, we had Jim Lavelle here, and Jim had been handcuffed to Lee Harvey Oswald when he was shot. And you've probably seen the famous picture. He's a tall Texan in a big white hat. And he's kind of pulled back from Oswald. And he also was a Pearl Harbor survivor. And to hear him interviewed on stage, and his mind was so clear and sharp about all that had transpired with the whole Kennedy assassination, I sat there and thought, you're not going to get many opportunities to hear interviews like this from primary sources, especially at this stage of his life. And I watched the children in the crowd, and I thought, if they live to be advanced in age, to be able to say someday that they heard from a primary source of history about that day that changed the nation, that's significant. And that needs to be, that's just one example of many. We had Shigeko Sassamori, who survived the bombing of Hiroshima.
Wow.
We've had all kinds of people like that, and their stories are just so special, they need to be preserved. And how often when we lose somebody that has witnessed a primary moment of history, do we feel like a whole chapter of the history book has left us?
Yeah. Well, a lot of times we feel that way when you lose somebody in your own family.
Of course.
That, especially an elder in your family, now you're taking this, it's on such a big scale. I think that's amazing. Right.
Like Louis Graziano, who I said is the last living witness to the German surrender of World War II. He's 100 years old. He lives in Georgia. This is his third visit to Marshfield, and he was an aide to President Eisenhower. And I remember as a child or a high school student on Veterans Day, when the veterans would gather in our school gymnasium for the assembly, the Veterans Assembly, I can remember the World War I veterans attending the Veterans Day Assembly. And to think, in the next few years, we'll see that there may be very few, if any, World War II veterans left.
Yeah.
And so to hear from those primary sources of history, they're significant. And so that's why Cherry Blossom Weekend is so special to me, because, as I said, I'm a history nerd, and I just soak it up like a sponge. It's crazy.
Do you have a cherry blossom tree at your house?
I do. Yes, I do. I'm often asked which one is my favorite, because, as I said, there are 3 varieties. And the first one that blooms is called Okami, and they look like little pink bells. And there are a few of them around town, not many. Then the second that blooms is the Yoshino, which we're most familiar with in seeing around the tidal basin in Washington, D.C.
Right.
And I think that's my favorite, because, from a distance, it can even look like a dogwood tree. And I think that's just what we normally associate cherry blossoms to look like. And when you really examine them, they kind of have a pink hue in the middle. But the third one, a lot of local people here like the third one. It's called Kawanzan, and they're pink, and they look like a double carnation. Ooh, and they're the last.
Yeah, I bet that is nice.
Yeah. And usually by cherry blossom time, the Yoshinos and the Okamis have already bloomed, but we'll see more of the third variety, the double carnation look around town. But this year, because of the weather, as you and I were talking about before the interview, it's been hot, it's been cold, and there's been freezes. The cherry blossoms are not as beautiful as we would normally see them, because I think the blossoms really took a hit with some of that freeze.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we ran into that here in West Virginia, where the trees they had a rough winter, and it just you're seeing it now that we've hit spring. You can say, oh yeah, that definitely negatively affected them.
That's right. I told our committee we're going to have to get out the glue guns and the silk flowers and start fixing them all over the trees.
Well, a lot of people have work done. We might as well do it for the trees too. Well, everybody wants to look their best.
That's right. You got to give them something to take pictures of.
Well, Nicholas, this has been terrific. I'm so happy you came on the show to talk about what I just think is absolutely not just a really great event or week, but kind of a vital one. I mean, we need more things.
I think and especially, as I said, this is the 18th year, but we've seen years of the festival where we were in contentious presidential elections, and divisive things across the country. And it was really nice to have a weekend where we could lay all that aside and come to the heart of America and remember the things that unite us and remember the history of our country that's so special and that we take for granted, and just to celebrate America.
Yeah.
I mean, who can argue?
I think that's a great idea.
It's kind of nice. And, it's not that these presidential descendants are not really active and involved, and some of them are very involved in the political parties that their family's been associated with for generations. Some of them still actively campaign, but to see them remember those friendships across the aisle, it's kind of nice. And it's refreshing.
Well, especially now, because we need things that bring us together regardless of our differences, especially now.
Who can argue with the day to go out and roll up our sleeves and work and make a difference?
Yeah. It's tough to argue with that.
That's right. And to celebrate these women who have been so significant to history. I think it was Betty Ford who once said it was behind every great man's an even greater woman, and that those women are very significant in helping shape the history of the country. And they have been. I mean, they've been prevalent at so much history.
Yeah.
You think of Rosalind Carter, she attended all the cabinet meetings. She was there for the Camp David Peace Accords. Yeah. And their husbands consult them and ask them questions, and they help in planning events that help bring world leaders together. And, there's lots of moments of diplomacy that's involved in that. Who sits next to who? There's some crucial moments, those seating charts you can do a lot with those seating charts. And, and beyond just picking out China and the eggs for the egg roll every year at the White House, they've made contributing factors that really have helped change history.
Amazing.
Eleanor Roosevelt, who was the eyes, ears, and legs of her husband. There's just example after example. So I'm just so appreciative that you allowed me to come on to toot the horn of First Ladies Day just a little bit louder for everybody to hear, because we need to do that. Yeah,
for sure. We absolutely do. And my pleasure. You have an open invitation to come back.
Hey, thanks. You have an open invitation to come to the Cherry Blossom Festival.
Yeah, I think that's one we need to put on our list.
Yeah.
And bring the grandkids out there. I think that would be a fun.
You make a list and we'll let you interview a bunch of people. You could have a whole Cherry Blossom segment of guests.
Oh, that'd be awesome. Yeah, that'd be terrific. So Nicholas, before I let you go, if our listeners, our watchers are interested and would like to come, where can they go to find out more about, accommodations and about the festival?
So we have a website. It's Cherry Blossom Fest, FEST.com, or on Facebook. We're really big on social media on Facebook. Missouri Cherry Blossom Festival in Marshfield, M-O. And on the website, there's a link about First Ladies Day. National First Ladies Day also has its own Facebook page. And so I would encourage those listening to go and visit there. And, hashtag National First Ladies Day or First Ladies Day, and help spread the word that we're going out and we're working, and your community needs to be doing that too. And shake the bushes, ring the phones, call your congressman and tell them to support National First Ladies Day, because I think it's important.
Yeah, terrific. Well, Nicholas, thank you so much. And definitely let's plan to do this again in the future.
Hey, thank you so much. Appreciate that.
Oh, you're so welcome. Okay, hold on one second.
Okay.
I don't talk about a lot on here, but I'm a big history buff. I've always been really fascinated with our country's history, especially around the different wars that we've been involved in, and the leaders of our political offices. I just think that stuff is so fascinating. So if you share those views, the Missouri Cherry Blossom Festival is probably for you. Definitely National First Ladies Day is something that you should probably check out. So I would encourage you to not only visit the festival in Missouri, but maybe look in your own towns and see what you can do to correspond with National First Ladies Day. I think that's just a terrific idea. Thank you guys so much for tuning in again this week. If you're finding us for the first time and you enjoyed it and you'd like to support us, it's easy and it's free. If you prefer to watch, it's YouTube, MeisterCon Pod. Just hit subscribe. Really helps us out. If you're listening, wherever you listen to your podcast from, just subscribe there. We've got almost 600 episodes. You can find all of them, audio and video, on our website, meistercon.com. That'll also let you know if we're doing anything in studio. If we're going on location, say at the Missouri Cherry Blossom Festival, that'll be on there. If we're covering a convention, whatever we have going on, that'll be on the website, meistercon.com. So please check us out there. Thank you guys so much. Until next time, everybody.